Hi guys! So if I look tired, it's because I am. There's an event going on today that's, supposed to be exciting and stuff. So yeah, stuff is going on. Anyway, but before I partake in this stuff, and I apologize for the lighting back there. I don't have curtains. I haven't updated that area of my room yet, and it's just going to sit there like that until I do. So what can you do? Anyway, so this is my review of Den of Wolves by Juliet Marillier. And I have to say, her first book was really good, and then her second book was okay, and her third book is slightly better than the first book. But I did find myself checking out with Blackthorn a little bit. I still like her as a character, but I mean, the thing is, like, when excuse me, I get the point of, like, the whole point of her character needing to be driven on the fact that she needs to learn to let go of revenge, and that revenge is going to do nothing for you when you try to seek it yourself. But Grimm and Kara's storyline was really good and really riveting. Like, I found myself just absolutely just astonished by how well-rounded Kara was as a kind of a person. As a person, Kara was definitely like that character you found yourself looking at and reading about and going, that poor girl. and just kind of like her situation, like, it was like, you could tell with her situation that it was clear that her father didn't have, like, the familial love towards her that he should have had. Like, whether you're adopted or not. Like, here's the thing about adoption. Adoption is the willing taking upon yourself a willing dependent given freely to you, or put basically, like, get put in that, like free who has the free choice to be a part of you, whether they're a small child and given freely to the adoption agency by the mother with the agreement to either be an open adoption or a closed adoption, one of the two, and then the parents take them in, or the prospective parents take them in. They foster them, they fight for them. Sometimes they don't win them, sometimes they do. I mean, it's very interesting. I know very little about the adoption process because I haven't had the chance to really dig deep into it and go through it, because I'm not in the, I'll be honest, I'm not in the point in my life where I'm looking at that right now, where I'm like, where I know for sure whether or not, like, that is definitely a road I'm going to end up taking. So I haven't looked at it yet. But from what I do know, it's a very grueling process, and it's also very rewarding. This is not an what happened with Kara in this book is not an adoption. It was a literal child abduction. And she was literally told she was one person all her life. And then come to find out, she's not only not who she thought she was completely different than everybody else, like she thought she was. Or more like she knew she was. And so it's very interesting. And one of the things I did like about this book was that instead of, like, Blackthorn helped Kara quite a bit. She helped Blackthorn helped Kara find a way to ground herself, which is funny because Blackthorn is still trying to find a way to ground herself, and she's still not good at grounding herself, like bringing herself back to her center, because she herself had not been able to come to that ability, because the ability to do that, because of how terrifying her past had been. So it's very interesting, and I mean, it's a very interesting and absolutely riveting. I loved reading about Kara because, like, again, it's one of these things where it's just kind of like Juliet Marillier is dealing with Irish folklore. And unfortunately, when you're dealing with Irish folklore, it's pretty, like, when you're a reader, when you're dealing with fairy tales, myths, and legends, and folklore, one of the sad things about the stories is that they're very predictable. You try to make them unpredictable as possible, but they're still very predictable. And this book was very predictable, so I'm gonna be honest, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 star rating, not because I didn't like it, but because it just, like, you could tell her originality was draining. And I do actually hope she doesn't continue the series, not because, again, I like the series, I just felt like it ended. We're done. Like, that's kind of how I feel about like, just how the series ended. She's done. She's ended it. There was an ending. It was a good ending. It's ambiguous whether or not Blackthorn and Grimm are going to live happily ever after. It's ambiguous whether or not Kara is going to live happily ever after with her dad, or the young man who has taken an interest in her, and she kind of, like, has taken an interest in him. So, I mean, it's very interesting, and I mean, I enjoyed, again, one of the things about Juliet Marillier in this book is that she's very good at, like, social commentary. And there's a lot of social commentary in this book. Again, I mean, there is certainly a lot of social commentary. There's a lot of, because, like, people stealing people's babies so they could have them for themselves, that still happens. That still happens today. I mean, come on. People dealing with infertility, that still happens today. There's a lot of women who, ooh, and my neck hurts. There's a lot of women who deal with infertility, and just kind of like how, when they, like, go through the thought process of, I can't have children, and that's in there too, where Kara's, I'm gonna call them her step parents, because they kind of are. Kara's step parents, the people she lived with or grew up with, if you will. Her stepmother was infertile. Like, she was old. She was getting to the point where, as far as I understand, she was getting to the point where, as a woman, it was starting to become harder and harder and harder for her to have children. And she was still young, like, she was, like, in her 30s, and but women in their 30s, there is something to be said about the fact that it is harder for women in their 30s and 40s to have children. But that's when a lot of women are having children these days, versus in their 20s and their teens. Like, we're smashing down teen pregnancy, hopefully, to the point where, like, society right now, to where women in their 30s and 40s can't have kids. But the thing is, like, when you're in your teens, which is likely when this woman got married to, I don't remember his name, but Kara's stepfather, that was like she, in the time frame that this is, she was likely, like, in her teenagers when they married, and he was probably in his late 20s to early 30s, and she couldn't have kids. Like, that's what it felt like. And she was a very sickly woman, and as much as I hate to say it, like, your health really is very dependent on whether or not you can have kids or even support kids. And so that's an interesting, it's very interesting, like, when you see that transplant, like, something that we know as a society right now, we know that is a thing that does happen. It's interesting to see that transplanted into a book. And again, that's one of the things that I think Juliet Marillier does very, very well. And she does it so well that I still enjoy the book. Even, I mean, just because I'm giving it a 3-star rating doesn't mean I didn't like the book. I like the book. It's when I get below that 3-star rating is when you know I didn't like it. And typically when it was just that bad, I give it, like, 1 star or something. But no, it's still a good book. And it's a good book because of the social commentary. But I do also feel like the plot did suffer from the fact that she relied so heavily on Kara to carry the story, and Kara carried the story. Technically, Kara and Grimm did in their own way, but she definitely carried the story. She was the star, and I don't think she was particularly meant to be the star, if you will. Not like the star. It's still supposed to be Blackthorn and Grimm's story, but in the end, it just ended up being more about Grimm again. Like the last book, it ended up feeling like this was definitely more about Grimm. But now in this book, we're definitely getting this feeling like this is definitely about Grimm. And Blackthorn is going through, like, stuff too, like, mentally. But there's things, like, I think there's aspects of their relationship, like, where, like, their opinion of their own relationship, where I feel like it has, that Juliet Marillier got impatient with them. I did this. I'm writing a fan fiction, for goodness sake. I mean, I still have that thing posted. And I did that. I did the thing where I got so impatient that I stuck two characters together, who, I mean, I intended for them to be together in the end anyway. But I went back and I started reading what I wrote beforehand, and it didn't make sense, and I knew I had to rewrite that sucker. And that's the thing. And that's, I think, the problem, like, with our modern society right now, is we expect books to come out every year to 2 years. And because we do that, I think a lot of stuff is lost. So anyway, that's my review for Blackthorn and Grimm's novels, Den of Wolves. Have a good day, y'all.